and gentlemen, and welcome to this special Labor Day broadcast. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of this special Labor Day broadcast we call Between the Headlines, we're going to be discussing a very pertinent question. What does Liberia need most? Most of the time when you hear discussion, they say, oh, Liberia, all we need is roads. Some say we need electricity. Some say the issue is money. Some say it's the economy. Some say it is all kinds of things. So the question we want to be discussing or answering tonight, or attempt to answer, is what really does Liberia need, and where do we find this solution? Can we find this solution in a person or an institution like a political party? The concept that, maybe do we need a kind of Paul Kagame type? Do we need someone who is Jerry Rawlings, somebody will say? Some say we need someone like Prince Johnson. All kinds of things that people have said in our search for what we think can move the country forward. So on this day, I want us to discuss what is it that the country lacks that we really think it should have. Do we need a Messiah who will save us and cleanse us from all unrighteousness? That's what we'll be talking about tonight. Let me welcome FOL governance consultant, Mr. Ahmed Sirleaf, who knows a thing or two about government. Mr. Sirleaf, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. It's always a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Let me also welcome Mr. Dave Toja, who is a board member here at Focus on Liberia, is a psychologist and somebody who has been talking politics ever since he was in the second grade. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis, and I'm delighted to be part of this discussion tonight.
Let me welcome for the first time on Focus on Liberia, Mr. Ja Nimine Blamo. He writes a lot. Every time I see an article about what's going on in Liberia written by Mr. Blamo, and he will send it to you. He's been a member of PAR ever since when I was a little boy, maybe. Mr. Blamo, welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are so delighted to have you.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be on the program.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. As we grapple with this very important question, I want you to invite a friend and tune in, share the show, invite a friend. This is how I thought about it. I was writing something down this morning. I said, what does Liberia need, and does one person or a group have it? Is it law for country? Is it a rule of law? Is it a vibrant economy? Is it reconciliation? Is it education? Is it infrastructural development? Is it the fight against corruption? Is it democracy? Is it leadership? What is it? Depending on who you talk to, each person sees what is wrong with the country and what is required to fix it. In fact, that's why some people call themselves fixers, rescuers, and sweepers, and everything else, right? So as we go into elections this year, we hear a lot of prescriptions on who each one believes has that solution. Does Liberia need a savior or a messiah to save us from all our troubles and march us to the promised land? Does Liberia need a strong man or a strong woman leadership? They want someone we'll call a J.J. Rawlings to strong arm the country into doing what is right, or a benevolent dictator like President Tubman or President Paul Kagame. Is that what we need? And even some people have gone to the extreme, saying, they kind of fancy military coup like the one in Gabon, Niger, or Guinea, as a way to bring us to the place where everyone wants the country to be. And that's what, thinking about these things, it leads me to ask, what does Liberia want and who has it? Is it even possible that what is needed can be endowed in one person, in one political party, or what? Let me also welcome Mr. Jimmy Eastman. Jimmy, welcome to the show. I hope you don't have an internet problem.
No, I don't. I'm just getting started. I'm good.
All right. Welcome, Jimmy. Let me welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If you have not already done so, please share the show. It promises to be Great. Well, since we have Mr. Blamo for the first time, I just want Mr. Blamo take a few minutes to just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a member of PAR way back. You are heading the Grand Crew Association Delaware Valley chapter. Jimmy, we're getting feedback from you.
Okay, sorry. Let me cut it off.
Mr. Blamo.
Basically, my name is John Nimnan Blamo. I began my career in politics and in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County, where I was president of the Wellenberg Technical Training Center and Student Council, and I was Assistant Secretary General of PAR in Buchanan and under Bacchus Matthew, and we were very much a part of the revolution. And I work with the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, Bureau of Social Welfare as a director, and I work with youth in getting some of the boys off the street in Monrovia, and migrated to Germany and the United States, where I studied public administration and psychology and sociology. I've been writing as chairperson of the Athena International for over 15 years, and I'm the president of the Grand Crew Association. And I do a lot of work in the community and with the grassroots, and do a lot of writing, as the moderator has indicated. And I'm very much in favor of a nationalistic approach to our problem. I believe we should be nationalist, and that is my position tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. I want Mr. Sirleaf to open us tonight as to this whole question, and maybe permit me if I'm rambling, right? Really, in our quest to make Liberia what we all want it to be, what is it that Liberia needs, and who has that solution?
Thank you, Dennis. So what, in short, all Liberia needs is prosperity. What Liberia needs is progress. Liberia needs to be at least 60 years ahead of where it is today. Liberia needed to have been ahead of countries in the region, because Liberia had been ahead of those countries that seemingly are doing a lot better, although they themselves have their own issues. If you begin to name countries like Ghana, Nigeria, with all its problems, because it has populations, it has people, it has made progress in significant areas. Countries like Kenya, countries like Tanzania and Rwanda, everybody talks about Rwanda, maybe an outlier, but Liberia needs to be ahead of Rwanda. Liberia needs to be in the same league as South Africa, pretty much under the edge of a middle income, what they call middle income country. That's what we need, right? That's where we need to be growing. We need to be making progress. We need to be making progress economically. So economic development, the economy, we can talk about those factors. We need to be making progress politically. So political maturity, democratization and democracy, liberal democracy, I might add. Liberia needs to be making progress socially, which means our society, what kind of people are we? How do we relate to one another? How do we relate to others in the region? How do we treat ourselves? How do we treat morality? Questions of morality, questions of citizenship and state. I heard you say, Mr. Blamo said nationalism, nationalistic. That's one perspective, right? We can delve into that, but that is a subtopic that's under a larger question of citizenship and citizenship responsibilities and obligations. So Liberia is really doing poorly on many metrics. Unfortunately, it's not all doom and gloom. So I'm not here to be the doom and gloom guy. This country has a lot of history. Liberia was at the table of many great things around the world, including 1945 in San Francisco, the United Nations, including on the margins of the Bretton Woods institutions, including, of course, the African Union, the Organization of African Unity, OAU, and the ECOWAS was in Saniquili, Nima County. So Liberia has been there, has been at the table. It's a great nation. Liberia has known and seen great sons and daughters who have contributed significantly to other countries and other regions, and it still does. However, Liberia slipped somewhere, and we have been unable to get out of that quagmire. We've been unable to extricate ourselves. As a result, we're seeing ourselves we're seeing ourselves degenerating, we're seeing ourselves going deeper and deeper in a hole, so to speak, in a proverbial well. We're sort of in a well. We don't see what else is going on around us. We can only see the sky, but we're unable to get to the sky.
Thank you. So according to, let me go to Mr. Blamo. Mr. Blamo, what does Liberia need?
Well, I think everything that Mr. Sirleaf has indicated are valid. We need a lot of things, and we are far beyond our counterpart as one of the oldest African republic. It's a shame that we are this far back. But the problem, in my view, is in Liberia, we are always addressing symptoms instead of causes. Now, the first question was asked, and there's a whole lot of things presented of what Liberia needs. And that's the approach our politicians and administrators have. They list a whole bunch of things that we need, and they don't assess where we are before you need these things. Basically, our problems stem back from as far as 1847. We have a system of government that is a plantation-style system of government. Monrovia Center is run by an elite group of people. 10% of the country is using the entire resources of the country as government job, as a pension plan, as allowances. And by the time government paid that money, our whole finance is depleted. And every administration comes in with a replacement of this 10%. So we have an elite group of people that is being replaced every 6 years. In 1980, when we had a revolution, we decided that the American Liberian system was exploiting the native population, the Aborigines. So we removed those people from power. But instead of creating or equality in the country for citizenship, we replaced them. So the 10% of American Liberians were replaced by Flomo, Guia, and Soniga. And they decided that those processes were not fair to the people, finally realized that no, it's okay. Let's keep the system. So we have been moving all this time with the 10% and suppressing 80% of the population. And when in our presidential figures are dictators, are emperors. Nowhere in the world the president has that level of power. But as soon as we have election, the question is null and void. The power goes to the next person and we continue. Then the country itself has created a learned helplessness. They want a messiah, someone to come from outside and save them from themselves. And every 6 years, we're looking for a new messiah. And after 6 years, we say, no, it's insufficient. Then we say, one visionary leadership. Ellen Johnson said he from Harvard University show up with all the vision, with billions of dollars in international funding. And she created some of the best programs in Liberia. In 12 years, she couldn't eliminate poverty in Liberia. With poverty is a function of capitalism. So we found a new messiah, and we keep looking for the messiah. The quest for messiah continues. Then we look for visionary leader. We want one man to save the whole country. That's ridiculous. Even in the great United States, you can't find one man to save the country. And you will not find that one man in Liberia. Nowhere in the world does one man is followed by the entire country, except in Russia, in China, and in a military coup, Jerry Rawlings. So you planting cassava and you're looking for oranges. Do you want a visionary leader? Because you're not going to get that one-man rule in the kind of democratic system we are. We have a legislative branch of government with two houses. Can anybody tell why we have two houses? No, because the United States got two houses. So that's millions of dollars we're paying these people are up to the tune of $17,000 a month. And yet we are wondering where our problem lies. But we want this, we want that, we want everything. Cuba is one of the poorest countries in the world. They created a national priority. They say health is our priority. Cuba, as poor as it is, exporting doctors. But in Liberia, we lack the priorities. We lack the political will to make structural changes. So we create these needs and we finance them and say it will solve the problem. But it's the balance of power. It is empowering the people where we have people being elected in the counties. We say we have a leadership deficit, but it's false. The leadership deficit is not in the presidential office. It's all over the country, in every county. We need a lot of leaders. And until we begin to do proper decentralization and create a balance of power, you can elect all these 20 guys as president. Each of them will fail because our priority is too large. We want too many things, and we're not willing to sacrifice for them. So we have to be nationalist, regardless of party, affiliation, religion, and tribe, for the good of the country. And then we got to identify what our priority is. If it's agriculture, and we go there, we are graduating degree holders from universities that have no job. What is the value and the purpose of education? To create citizens who are responsible. But we are just producing degrees.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. And I will come back to you. Let me go to Dave and then Jimmy. And and I know you listed a whole lot of things, all of you, but we'll come back to the point, which one do we need the most and who has it? But Dave, let me hear from you as to what Liberia needs.
Well, Liberia needs a better Liberia. How it comes about, a lot of things that we can put on the table. But what I believe is our fundamental problem is the institution that we have set up for ourselves, or others set it up for us. And we expect that institution to perform for us. We took a system of governance, transpose it for ourselves, and we do not have the basic understanding of that form of government, how it's supposed to function. And that is not just a Liberian problem. I think part of it is an African problem. What we master is, or what we are, our strength. We don't capitalize on our strength. So we decided to capitalize on another strength. We call it, whether it's democracy, is parliamentary democracy, or congressional democracy, whatever that we claim that we have. But we don't have the wherewithal. We do not have to a large extent, we don't have the competence and what is required for us to manage those kind of things. And to have a society that functions well, the people have to function. If you have too many inequalities in a society, in a country, definitely a lot of things will be left undone. So the primary thing that we need, I think all of the speakers have pointed to the fact, is But I'll generally say we need a real, better, sound leadership, a kind of leadership that will first study the problem because all of us can do it. That's why we set up government so that it can be in a position to to solve some of our problems, to provide solutions. And if that government fails, and if that government is not capable enough to provide those basic needs or to provide some to generate some ideas that will help the country, we all become sufferers of the system. So, I mean, the bottom line is we need a sound leadership, a leadership that understands the problem, a leadership that knows what it takes to have a well functioning society. And once we don't, and how do we get to that point? That's another problem. We do something we call elections, and people get involved into election for their party, for themselves, and then they get into power and say, well, we have the political capital to do whatever we want to do because we are the people that have been elected. And so they go about and do whatever they want to do. And then eventually, we don't have the kind of leadership that will harness the resources, that will mobilize people, that will generate ideas so that our country can become a more vibrant and more viable country. So again, leadership, but there is a serious deficit of leadership in our
Thank you. Jimmy.
Yes, I love the question, Dennis. As it's existential question, as Ahmed Salif would say. But I really appreciated what Ja Blamo said up until the point of the revolution. Liberia was created, and the power was in within a certain few people hand. Now, that is understandable because democracy was being introduced into the territory called Liberia, and there were not everybody that understood the mechanisms of democracy and had the wherewithal to be able to participate. So, but since then, we should have evolved since then. And the revolution, some people define a revolution as a mere overthrow of the government. But I look at a revolution as a fundamental change in the way of we think. That is a true revolution. So in 1980, we saw the removal of the few elites that were controlling. But what did we see? A replacement of same. So that in itself created what we call a hypocrisy because you you condemned one group and you do the same thing. And after that hypocrisy was introduced, we it was followed with a cognitive dissonance. We don't want to believe we pretend not to be doing the wrong thing. We pretend that it's okay. So that has manifested itself today that we don't hold our leaders to genuinely who they are. And because of that, we still have the same dilemma. Few people controlling the country and not necessarily seeking the interests of everyone. And so that hypocrisy, that cognitive dissonance that we are manifesting generation after, it has to be halted. We have to look at things in a way if that is that has to be based on merit, nothing else, and definitely, as Ja alluded to, we have to dissipate power to give the people more say in their livelihood, in their governing, and only and we've seen no one wants to really do that. No one wants to orchestrate that separation of power, that diffusing of power from the Monrovia, and until we begin to do that, until those who are in charge begin to relinquish the reins to allow people for self-determination in their various regions, we're not going to go anywhere. So it's going to require honesty, and we have to disassociate ourselves from the hypocrisy we've been carrying along.
And I've heard this question of decentralization, which you and Ja alluded to, or Ja Blamo, 2 minute Ja's tonight. So, but here is my question. I mean, there should be something fundamentally wrong, or if you have, let's say, if you have corruption, or if you have competence or anything evil that is centralized, if you break that apart, you are only dividing one evil into smaller pieces. Don't you think? So there should be something else besides decentralization, because if we appoint, for instance, we have legislators who are supposed to represent these little districts all the way as far back as behind Bokonjere to Paye to if I mean that in itself is decentralization. But if we don't correct something, I don't know what that is, and we just decentralize, we will just be decentralizing the same incompetence, the same corruption, the same laziness.
Right. So it has to be coupled with the espousing of certain principles and beliefs, and that has to be propagated all around. Nationalism should be touted. What is nationalism has to be defined, and a code of behavior, a code of ethics has to be communicated in each and all. We all follow it, because just like you say, if we do not establish our rules of engagement, or how will we decentralize so that this what we got here wouldn't be repeated? We have to come up with a code of ethics we believe in, and find a method to ensure each region is following that national code, that nationalism, that dedication to the country and not to self. That has to be also propagated with the decentralization.
In addition to what the Honorable General Eastman said, first of all, decentralization, the notion that decentralization is something that the central government or one man in the executive mansion has to do is now 100% correct. The first level of decentralization is empowerment of the people. The counties have to elect their superintendents. You can't have a president appointing a town chief in way beyond Sasta.
Not to interrupt you, Blamo.
Yeah.
We elect legislators and they're corrupt. I mean, I'm just using it. I don't want to. So what's the difference electing a representative who is bad or electing a superintendent? Because the legislature we elect have not made any difference.
It's a big difference. The legislator you elect is dependent on the executive branch of government. There has no support in the county. There's no shield. When a county have a local leadership that is supported by the legislature, he has backing. When a legislature is alone and the superintendent is appointed by the executive branch of government, and the legislator live in Monrovia, and the legislature depend on the finance ministry to send him a check, there's a whole system of dependency in there. And the culture is rotting. It won't work. We have to be brave and go all the way. Elect entire county leadership, the superintendent and the legislature. Create a block, and then put in what Eastman said: rules of engagement and monetary blocks. In that way, you have a check and balance. Imagine, let's give an example. If I was a president and I wanted to take away $10 million from the Ministry of Finance, I called my finance minister and he sent me a $10 million. There is no real fear. But if I knew that you, Ja, was superintendent of Grand Crew, and Sirleaf was superintendent of Cape Mount, and Eastman was superintendent of Montserrat County, and I know those boys are going to ask questions, it's an automatic check and balance. And those boys will stand on the ground to check power. You have a handicapped legislature, and you don't have the rules of engagement that Eastman is talking about. So it's either you have bread or you don't have bread. If you're going to do democracy, you have to do it completely. We can't be 150 years plus, and our people in the counties are not allowed to elect their superintendents.
Right.
What kind of democracy is that?
Thank you. So Dave, I'm coming to you because you made this point earlier that so it means this democracy is kind of imposed on us. I don't know, that's what you were alluding to, or that we don't understand it or we don't practice it to the fullest, or it's something foreign. So we are not able to really do it better.
It's self-deceit, just as Isma said.
Yeah,
it's self-deceit. We're not serious.
Right. So maybe it's not working for us, Dave. What's your take on that?
Look, it's the same whether you decentralize or you centralize. There are countries with even a centralized government, and yet still the functions of government continue to exist and they do what is expected of them to do. Brother Eastman talked about something about the hypocrisy of the Liberian populace. The and our level has our level of also complicity into these things that destroy us. It is not going to even matter if you don't have even a functioning, responsible, competent central government. Whether you decentralize that, it's like you are still dispersing crooks across the country. So instead of them being concentrated in Monrovia, they will be concentrated across the country. And the same nonsense and corruption will continue.
I disagree. I disagree with. Okay, all right.
Yeah, let me finish. Okay, we have a constitution that it may not be a perfect document, but it has some relevant stipulations in that. We have 3 branches of government. I bet you, if you ask some people in government about even their responsibilities in that government, what is it? What is their job description? They will not be able to tell you. Sometimes if you even ask the president of the Republic of Liberia to discuss some provisions of that constitution, they don't know that. They don't know what is there to do. Yes, my uncle, my friend was once a minister in government, so I like that job. You have people placed into positions for which they have no competence. It's just like, okay, let me place this person here because this is the job that is left over. So I'm going to take you to transportation, I'm going to take you to finance, I'm going to take you to this place, to that place. The very system that we have set up for ourselves, that governance system, 3 branches or whatever, we are not even allowing it to function well and effectively. So Liberians, we have to be, like the Bible says, if you are entrusted with few things and you can manage them, what more if they entrust you with a lot of things? So first and foremost, these institutions that we have set up, we need to let them work. They should function effectively. And then, as they function effectively, we are also analyzing them day and night. But sometimes in Liberia, we pretend that everything is okay. Oh, yeah, we have all the laws on the book. Who are those people that are doing even the quality analysis of our system to make some suggestions and say, this is what we're ready to do? But these things are not happening. The system that we have, it may not be a perfect system, but we need to allow it to work effectively. And most people that are placed in those positions, sometimes they don't even understand that system. They don't know what they're supposed to do. And as the result, they just reinvent the wheel, circumvent the whole system. And we, as people, we are the victims, and we sit and we are helpless.
Uh, I,
Thank you.
I like.
Hold on, Blamo. I want to
Okay.
bring Sirleaf in a little bit because according to Dave, Mr. Sirleaf, that the system, what we have can work if we allow it to work. So we may not need another system, but we can operate. We can use what we have, and it will work for us. But we are not. What I would want Dave to explain further is how. But let me hear your side of the argument, Mr. Sirleaf.
Well, thank you. This is a heated debate. Earlier, Mr. Blambo had said that we are quick to enumerate the problems and fail to look to the causes. And then in no time, he himself fell prey to that. Started talking about decentralization and electing superintendent. So it's like you're dealing with it through piecemeal approaches. That is, while that is a good thing, because that's democracy, right? Earlier on, I talked about these things that we need democratization and so forth. And all of those mean those things. But if you are asking a fundamental question, a question that speaks to the very foundation of the nation, question that speaks to constitutionality, a question that speaks to peoplehood. Who are we? What kind of system do we need to reverse engineer? Do we need to deconstruct our nation, including looking at our constitution, including studying our cultures, our people, what makes us come together, what makes us to disintegrate and disunite, and therefore disabuse ourselves of those things that are inimical, those things that are bad to us. These are kinds of questions. These are academic questions you're asking, almost like theoretical propositions you're asking us to deal with, right? And if you're asking these questions, then yeah, let's take a step back. Some might say, look at leadership theories. There are some basic 5 leadership theories. All leadership experts will look at a piece of it, and then so because we're quick to say, oh, maybe we need a leader who can tell us what to do and how to fix ourselves, our problem. That those who talk about tyrannical leadership or autocratic leadership, that Jerry Rawlings you're describing, that's just a symptom. You pick a Paul Kagame, that's just a symptom, because that's one type of leadership theory or model. That's an autocratic or tyrannical leader who is served instead of serving others. People fear them, right? And therefore they're able to impose their will and get things done certain ways. So that's one leadership model. I mean, this is a summary of it. If you want a leader, you're looking for a person. And there are even questions about, oh, well, there are leaders that are born, they have certain traits. Those that learn leadership, those that leadership is entrusted to them, if you listen to what Shakespeare said, right? And then the second one is democratic leadership. This is a leader that distributes power, that listens to people, that seeks others' opinion, their followers' opinions. Ultimately, they have the responsibility and they're accountable for that decision, but they listen to consult a lot. That's what I'm hearing when you talk about decentralization, you talk about distributing powers and sharing power, leadership in that democracy element. That's a democratic leadership style. You're looking for a democratic leader who has those sensibilities and that philosophy. And then there's this 7 leadership idea where the leader literally serves the people. They go out and roll their sleeves. Jerry Rawlings did some of that and sweep the street and really like look after the people, right? And then the situational and so on. So I'm just saying, Dennis, that there are these big picture things that we're picking pieces of it and discussing and saying these are the solutions to our problem. Because when you come to nation building, and then people say, okay, look to economic models or look to development theories. Say economic development models. Well, which one do you want to employ? Which one do you think fits your context or your situation? Rostel, there's a man named Rostel in the 1960s talk about prepare your country from traditional society like agriculture and all of these things, primary sort of basic farming to the point where the country is able to take off and then ensure that take off, that country matures and grows from there. Right? There are other models that we can take a bit and pieces of them and then we just discuss them here.
Am I hearing you to say the question is leadership, or you are saying leadership is a subset? So what is the issue here?
Leadership is a subset because we're all discussing. So, well, maybe we need to elect this kind of person.
Right. So
maybe we need somebody
you're trying to paint here.
So I am saying the problems are fundamental. What I'm hearing all of us say, we're taking piecemeal approaches to Liberia's complex problems. Some say, well, let's look at the Constitution because they impose this upon us is not working for us. Is they even the right thing, right? If you look at there's two authors, Simaglo and Asomaglu and Robinson wrote a book about why nations fail. One of the major things to discuss in our book is inclusive institutions that actually is built for all the citizens, institutions that work, institutions that serve the people, institutions that encourage and promote this idea that public service is there to serve a purpose greater than thyself, right? So that if you are you hold some kind of title, you know that your job is there to serve your country, to serve your community and your people. And they describe how that works. And then they talk about other institutions, institutional arrangements that are not inclusive. That just means like some of what we have in Liberia. You say, okay, we have 3 branches of government, right? You name them, you put people in positions, give them title, but they're really serving themselves. Everybody's fighting over this little pie here. So I submit to you tonight, yeah, this is a great discussion, but you're asking us to undertake an endeavor that when we begin to really go into it, a lot of people will not speak to some of us here when we leave this show tonight, because then we will be looking at fundamental problems we see and dissecting why are these problems there in the first place, and what do we do about these problems.
Let's go there.
Okay, so for example, when people go running for office, I ask them, why do you want this office? They say, oh, I want to be president. I think I can do it. Why do you want this office? What will you do with it? You want to be elected representative for a certain district. Have you stopped and asked yourself, why do I want this office? And what will I do with this power, this position when I have it, right? What kind of answers do you get when you ask Liberians? A lot of people, when you talk to them, it's really about survival, about themselves. They want prestige, they want money. There's basically nothing else for them to do in a country but to be in government, because we have a welfare system. We have a society that, like Blamo described, is just there. We don't have residual revenue or income as a country to actually engage in physical infrastructure, do fiscal economic development, engage in capital investment projects, big public work projects, big agricultural mechanization, things that will create jobs, will improve the private sector and employ people. You don't need to pay university tuition free when parents are doing well, when they have money, when guardians and community members are doing well. They will send their kids to schools of their choice. You don't have to do that for them. Yes, the government, as a matter of social contract, has certain constitutional responsibilities. Say K-12 education. There's a reason why you have public schools in certain countries, because again, that's just social theories, how society is arranged. So you got to educate certain people, prepare people for factory work, prepare people to create companies and jobs and things like that. You look at society arrangement. So Dennis, you are asking us, tear down what you have, rebuild it, because what we have is not working. So that is really the question that you have before us here, is to tear down the system. Whereas the constitution is not working for us, because then it feeds into our mindset, our mentality, it feeds into our peoplehood. Who are we? How do we treat one another? When you start going tribal, you start going sectional, you start going religious, then it becomes sort of me versus them, right? I'm better than this person, and therefore, as you have better, more of the resources, I'm the one who's in power. My party is in power. I don't care about this. These are fellow citizens who have rights, citizenship rights, and responsibilities. So, hey, maybe I'm not providing you solutions, but I'm just saying, okay, you're elevating the debate, Dennis. You're elevating the conversation. This is going to be very painful if you want us to go to deconstruct, to reverse engineer before we begin constructing.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to.
Let Blamo go first, then David
Okay.
come.
No, I just wanted
You
to
know, I already
clarification.
like Mr. Sirleaf. Thank you for the civil lessons, and the fear that we are being asked to destroy what we have and start again is late. It's too late for that now. We have come to a point we fought war twice already. There is the fear. There's no need to fear. What we require in Liberia is courage and bravery. Mr. Eastman told you the rules of engagement. That is a very important. That is built in institutions. We lack institutions. If we put the rules of engagement down, what you're talking about, the system is already corrupt, widespread corruption. Those discussions we had them in 1980. Emma Sawyer had lined up all the discussions when he was chairman of the governor committee. That is discussion Eli Johnson said he had for 12 years while we delayed decentralization. They were having the very same discussion. We always undermine our citizenship because they are not educated. They're too stupid to rule themselves. So we need a master plan. We need a messiah. We need to first make sure that what we have is perfect. Then we move on. That day will never come. We are over 150 years in our independence. That day when Jesus will be president and all the ministers will be disciples, and we'll have a perfect system. Then before we allow Flomo to elect his superintendent in Lofa County, the day will never come because we are human beings. We have elected to have a democratic system of government. We say we are a republic. Let us be a republic. If we have elections, let empower the people to elect their local leaders and learn from their mistakes and grow as a people. That's how democracy comes up. In the United States, everything was wrong. When those rag farmers started democracy, they learned from the experiences. We are depriving our people of the political experience and growth. When we think we know better than them and we want to fix the system before we get empowered, we have to empower all those people to self-determination and make them participants in the noble task of nation building, and not spectators, not a receiver of gifts, not helpless people.
Mr.
We are
Blamo,
wrong.
Mr. Blamo,
All these stupid people need to be in power. You gotta give the people their political rights.
Mr.
Thank
Blamo,
you.
Go ahead, Dave.
The question, yeah, when you are talking about that, I mean, I'm not against decentralization, but decentralization itself, to some extent, we have it. Okay, even if you were to decentralize, which of course we have, you're not going to create everybody in that county is not going to be employed or work in government or whatever. But what you need is that we are talking about, because right now you have superintendents, you have mayors, you have various departments, every ministry of government in the
Those
Republic
people
of
have to be elected.
Yeah, yeah.
You must allow the people to elect their local leaders.
I understand that. That's just the process of having those leaders. Okay, electing them, I'm not against it, but electing them will not automatically make the difference. You can elect them, and they can still not function.
That is their God-given right to choose their destiny.
Yeah.
You can't choose it for them. That is the miracle Liberian argument, that the people too stupid.
No, definitely. I am not in a position. Nobody is stupid in Liberia. What I'm even also saying is that you have these functionaries in the various counties right now. You have local governments, and local governments even functioning, even under our unitary system. Do we? If you have,
they cannot function.
I'm coming.
They cannot.
If you have the Ministry of Internal Affairs, there are sub offices of the Ministry of Internal Affairs that should be operational in Sino County, in Grand Juda, in Riverside. If you have the Ministry of Finance, there are sub offices of these various ministries that's supposed to be postal affairs and all of these things that are supposed to be functioning in those various counties. Are they functioning effectively?
Do they let the people decide that? Let the county decide that.
Mr. Blamo.
Do they have the budgetary allotments? Is our economy even serving them? So you can elect your superintendent in Sino County, and the political elite in Monrovia say, hey, I'm going to circumvent that system. That guy, I'm not going to deal with him. Do you remember even during the...
But that is the problem. That's the exact problem.
Mr. Blamo, I have a question. In my hometown, there's a city mayor there. He's been there since the war ended. Are you saying he was appointed? Are you saying if he's elected, he's going to do better than being appointed? Is that the argument?
I'm saying that human growth comes with experience. Political experience is part of the growth. If you sit in your county and you elect a superintendent or a city mayor who is exploiting and stealing from you, the responsibility lies with the citizen to remove him. But they don't know how to. They never learn. The political culture does not allow growth. We don't have way to recall people. We don't have accountability of elected officials. Liberians have no experience in removing and replacing people.
So the problem is election. That's what you are saying.
The problem is election, because that's how people grow. And let the people experience and then grow. You will see it will be better than for you to be in Monrovia and decide that they should have local government. They should have this. They may decide they don't want local government. Do you know the Ministry of Transport, Transportation Ministry, and Transport Authority get 15 buses? Do you know their budget? 2 million. 15 buses, 2 million. That the kind of system you want to carry to the county, and it should work. $2 million, 1.4 million for salaries, and they got 15 buses in the country.
But that is happening.
The system you got in Monrovia is sick.
Right. So
you need to allow the people to empower the people to try. You fail.
Mr. Blamo, what you are describing, can you point to any country where we find that is working?
Decentralization?
Yeah.
Oh, the United States have decentralization. Kenya has decentralization. Ghana got decentralization. Do you know that in Ghana, some minister position, you have to be in parliament for the president to appoint you?
So, Mr.
Kenya, if you look at the Kenyan history, they are all pushing further in decentralization. They don't have Nigeria style decentralization.
The point of interjection, Dennis. Decentralization is just one small piece that's on paper. Decentralization is not a problem. What Mr. Blamo, we used to, when we were young, they used to elect There used to be elections. There used to be local elections. Local government was everywhere, and the country was still struggling. Where the problem lies is devolution of power. So you have decentralization, right? When I worked in Liberia for 6 years, I worked for a major donor government, and I was working on projects around the country. We built county service centers in partnership with the government. So every county has a service center in their capital, so that you don't need to come to Monrovia to process your driver's license, birth certificate, death certificate, those basic things that you will get in the city. They're supposed to be happening as we speak. But those county service centers, they're non-functional. They don't have electricity. They don't have anything. They don't have transportation. Nobody, they literally, somebody will do the form for you, and then they say, we'll send it to Monrovia, just like, So why is it not working? Because they didn't devolve power. Devolution is power is where you collect taxes in Sino, you give some of the money to the people you've elected, and you've decentralized in Sino. So they hold some of that revenue themselves, are held accountable for it, so that they can report on it, they can run their systems with their money. Now, that part is now happening in Liberia under the decentralization law that we have. There's a new law in the country right now. So there are two things. Kenya, you're talking about, they're decentralized, and then they're struggling with devolution. They're trying at a county level, but the national system has not really been able to devolve power. Devolution of power means also you devolve, it's share power, right? You give, again, revenue goes, it doesn't just come in one direction, it goes back in all parts of the country, so that you divide pieces of the pie with everyone. That is where the problem lies.
But we're saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing.
No, you're focusing
You have to decentralize and provide the resources.
Right.
You have to have the rules of engagement. As Mr. Eastman said.
Dennis, that's why I said earlier, we're talking about symptoms here. So you're talking about processes of governance and things like that, democratization. That's what we're discussing. That's what he's discussing. If you're asking us fundamentally, what is wrong with Liberia? And then we consider that proposition. You say, well, how do we get there? That's the second question. How do we get out of there? Then you've elevated the conversation so that we begin to then say, examine what is wrong, and then try to understand the root causes of it, and decide how can we get out of it. Where are examples that they've had similar problems and they've gotten out of it? How did they get out of it? So that we can reconstruct and have these governance processes in place. You're just talking about semantics, processes. You let the people decentralize and this, that. What if it doesn't work?
Thank you. And this is where I don't want to spend too much time on the decentralization, because just one aspect of it. So, Jimmy, let's come to we're talking about what is wrong, right? Or what Labrador needs. What is that most important thing that we need, or what is that thing that you think when we fix, we can get it right before we come to who can do it?
Okay. I think if you saw Elvis' comment, it was good. It requires some degree of research so that we come up with the best solution. Yes, we do notice that our ministries are not working. There's a lack of accountability in all sectors. Okay, there's a lack of income. But what can we do to address the accountability issue? Because if you know how fundamental accountability is, in other words, you will not be able to do the wrong thing, or if you make a mistake, you are going to be held accountable. So accountability, if we're going to put our finger on one thing, is accountability. Now, how do you restore accountability?
And where does that start? That accountability, where does it start?
Exactly. How do you restore accountability? Okay, that means from top down, everybody has to be held accountable for what they're doing. I agree with the fact that we need to develop self-determination for each of the counties. Let them be able to decide where they want to be in agriculture? Do they want to be in any other sector? But we will still need to provide them a framework under which they will be able to work. So again, the government is supposed to facilitate development, and that framework we will have to come up with that will be usable in all the counties and all the constituents. Okay, but how do you start with accountability? This is the way I know. Mr. Ahmed is the social scientist here. The only way to start making people accountable if penal action is taken against any wrongdoing. Singapore had a more chronic problem than we did when it comes to corruption. They had a referendum in the country and everybody agreed. If you take something, if you steal, if you do something dishonest, there will be severe punishment up to including execution. That today, Singapore is modeled as one of the most honest republics around. So for accountability to be punishment, human beings by nature, if there's no consequence of their action, they will continue. So we have to make this strong. And this is where we fail now. Now that we have identified no accountability, okay, let's punish. But this is where we fail. We don't want to punish. When our relatives still know I'm look at me. When our friend when a newly elected president come there, we love him. He can build 10 million houses with nobody asking him questions. No accountability. No, we don't enforce it. And this is the hypocrisy I was talking about.
But
Until
Jimmy, who is supposed to enforce that accountability?
That is really reliant on all of us. When the
all of us as ordinary citizens?
As citizens, because if your government, and this is the hardest part of the democracy, if your government is not doing what you want to do, it is the power of the citizens to tell them, no, you're not doing what you're doing. Nothing's going to happen until you do it. They don't have to violent revolt. They can just have a sit in and demonstration. No, you're doing something wrong. That has to change. But we're protesting against. I get my salary. I get this. Those things are but the fundamental things. That why should you make $15,000 a month and a doctor can't even make barely $700? What is the justification? So we have to, but that requires educating the citizens. That requires enlightening them, and then we're not doing that either. So with this decentralization, we have to enlighten the citizens of what governance is. What is the administration supposed to do? When they should stand up for their right if the administration is not doing it. We have to put all these things in place to realize the country we want tomorrow.
You see, the
problem is a step-by-step approach.
Dave, I want you to come here, then we'll move to the next question.
Yeah,
go ahead, Dave.
It's all fine and good, provided the citizens have that power and ability. But somebody spoke about that derived helplessness.
Thank you. Power.
The population has come to a point where there is a degree of apathy on our part. Government has not worked for them. They have suffered under the hands of government, and as the result, they have become helpless that they cannot speak out. And even if they speak out, just small basic things that we are put into place in Liberia, like for instance, when they talk about the code of conduct. Okay? Do you understand how it has been circumvented by even government? Even our own father, the president. People are in public offices and they are not even accountable to the people. They will buy. The president said, I have no right because of the sake of my family. I'm not going to disclose my wealth and whatever. But few years before he became president, he disclosed some wealth. Who asked the question like, well, how come you disclosed that you have only, I think, 2,500? You said you were bankrupt. And now you have bought lands and you have built houses. As a president, you're supposed to even tell us, how did you obtain those lands? But because people circumvent the system, and we the people, the country is so divided on political lines. People, as long you own that person, that party, or is your tribal man, you will not want to speak the truth to that.
So Dave, what do we do?
Then this is why look, it's sometimes it's a kind of a helpless situation, because we can riot, we can do whatever, we can talk, we can make all the noise. If government says we're not going to pay attention to these people, and then mind you, our Liberian people, we are kind of accustomed to this, like whether it is it's kind of like two-way we think. We are angry. Liberian people will be quiet, calm for a long time. When they're going through the struggle, they will not say a thing. Then when something sparked, then the anger, everything flare up. Look at what happened in our country for the 14 years. Whoever thought that Liberians would have engaged into that kind of brutality? But because they bore it for so long, they suffered for so long, and there was no redress, they overreacted. So our society sometimes is kind of careful and afraid so that they will not overreact. How do we get out of it? Again, as I said, we need good leadership. We need people to be genuine lovers of country.
Dave, we need a constitutional amendment to create a balance of power.
Our system
you got to have a balance of power. You have to empower people.
Yes,
These people, you must have a constitutional amendment, create a balance of power. You don't have balance of power in the country. Nobody will challenge anybody. How do
we create that balance? Government.
It's a constitutional amendment.
And who should
the constitutional amendment that create a balance of power through decentralization?
Yeah, is government willing for those things?
Dave, let me conjoin your point. There's a framework. What Mr. Eastman and Dave Jah have been speaking to is impunity. So you have to have a legal framework, which we do. It's the Constitution. There are punishments in there. There are apportionment of how the government's supposed to work. Even if you decentralize, you still have that national government for a reason. You have to have in the federation, you have a federal government for a reason, because certain things the county can do, the state can do, only central government can do, like foreign relations, for example, foreign affairs. You have to have a national framework. We have the Constitution. It prescribes punishment. It prescribes, benefits, rights, and things like that. So we do have that. Well, the other thing that we have, which we need to disabuse ourselves of, is this impunity problem, which Mr. Eastman talked about. We don't implement the Constitution. We have constitution without constitutionalism, right? Which means it's on the books, but when our friends do things, they go free. We don't hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. That's what's called impunity. So you listen to certain politicians are talking about corruption, the problem of corruption and impunity, and then they're banking on rule of law. That's the name of that accountability Mr. Eastman and Dave Jah have been talking about. Rule of law. It means the highest person in the land is not above the law. Mm-hmm. The youngest person or whoever you consider low status person has same right just as a president or a minister under the law. That's why our Constitution.
That's what balance of power brings. Constitutional amendment.
I'm telling you, there is balance of power on paper, on the books, in the Constitution. But because
the president has all power,
please,
and we are Liberians, There is no balance of power.
I would like to finish my point there.
Hold on, Mr. Blamo.
I'd like to finish my point there. So I'm saying, if we address that impunity part, you balance the power, because if you hold people accountable, like Isman said, and then no one goes free, you punish people, you follow the law, nobody's above the law, then you have a civil country, you have a country that respects the rules and the institutions and the system they have in place, then you can follow the legal framework. Now, if there's still problems wrong with that legal framework, you go to a referendum, go to the citizens and say, how do we fix it, because this is not working? But we have become outlawed. We don't respect anything. We don't punish people. We just do things anyhow we want because we have power. That is where we are.
We don't have power. Few people get power. You got to empower the people, where then they will hold people accountable. Weak people do not hold people accountable. There are few people who have power in Liberia. How are they going to hold people accountable? They have no power. You have to create a balance of power. That constitution you talk about, it's dead.
Okay.
You need to empower the people so they can hold the elected representative accountable. Who don't have.
How do we do that, Mr.? How do we
constitutional amendment?
For a national conference?
Hold on. So the
Should we have a
constitutional
national
amendment.
conference?
Hold on, Dave. Walk me through the steps of this constitutional amendment.
Okay. The constitutional amendment, our system as we have,
just
has
walk
not
me
worked.
through how we're going to accomplish this constitutional amendment.
We petition our legislatures.
Who's the we?
Or civil engagement.
Right. So
civil engagement.
How do we do that? So let's say we're in Liberia today. Are you saying a political party, a county, few people? Who is going to do this?
The political party has failed us. The citizen coalition, civil engagement.
How? So
we have to petition our.
So you got to form an organization like June 7 protest or something like that. Because there's something in the Constitution now that the Supreme Court has been standing on called standing. You don't have standing, right? So how are we going to approach this as people?
The people are not taking sufficient cases to court. In many cases, the Supreme Court has been right. The Liberians do not carry cases to court because they don't have power, they don't have money. You have to empower the people.
Right, allow me to come in. Dennis, allow me to come in. I want to give you an example. I want to give you an example of how we can empower the people. What Mr. Jai is saying.
Right. The way I'm thinking now is I'm looking at a workflow diagram in my mind now. So
yeah.
What do we do in Monrovia tomorrow? We go to
this is one way we can do it. All right. We noticed that the way they subvert the various powers that the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, right? One way to subvert it is to form gangs and make sure your buddy gets elected so that when anything you want to pass in the legislature, it will pass. Also, they have made appointments in the judiciary so that everything you want to pass.
The problem.
So yeah, no, I just wanted to introduce that. Okay. So if you empower the people that at any time during the course of the tenure, listen, if you let me land, then you understand. At any time, the people are dissatisfied with that representative, with that senator, they can recall him. At any time during that time, they can recall him. But right now, we have to wait 6 years. We have to wait 9 years. But we make it that if the people are dissatisfied with any of the decisions that their senator or that he can be recalled, in other words, that he's answerable to the people, we'll see difference. Also, the tenures are too long. By having him or her always have to go back to the people for their support, they will be more accountable to the people. So we have to find a way to make them accountable to the people. And then we have to fix
the people have the power right now. The Constitution empower them to recall
there's no law for recall. There's no law.
Okay, let's come to this point. I want us to move to the next point. October 10, we have 20 persons who are vying with Appleton, Boakai, Brown, Cummins, Fremont, Gonglo, Kamara, Kemu, Colley, Kuyate, Kruma, Miller, Maniba, Morris, Yanti, Twitter, Turner, Wea, Wapo, and Fofi. So whatever happens, we'll have elections, right? All the things, everything that we've talked about, we talk about empower is going to come from somebody. Do you believe that what we are talking now, that change or the amendment Mr. Blamo talked about, the empowerment Jimmy talked about, the big picture Mr. Sirleaf talked about, do you think any one individual or political party can bring about that? Looking at, we're going to a convention, I mean, we're going to election, right? Can the change that we're looking for come through what I just showed you?
I mean, I can start first.
I want you to start second. Let me start with Sirleaf.
Okay.
Well, the question you should be asking is, based on what we've heard so far from all these people you named who are running for office, do we have indication that any of them can give us what we're asking tonight? That is the question because if you say, can anyone do it? Yes. I talk about 5 leadership models, any leader can come and based on how they constitute their cabinet, their government, who they surround themselves with, what kind of vision they have, or how they see the country, or what kind, what kind of legacy they want to leave, they can begin some kind of revolution. A leader can do that. Leadership matters, just like institutions matter. But our problem is not just leader or leaders. You can replace leaders and then they bring their cronies and the problem gets worse. And then you have election, you bring another batch of leaders and you haven't gone anywhere. We've seen it. We've seen
so
it.
We can look for solution from that list.
Well, we can look for solution from that list. However, I'm not dismissing that, it's possible that somebody from that list can listen and have the right mindset and deliver. For example, we are hearing from some of these politicians. So if you listen to Tiawan Gonglo, for example, right? I mean, the guy's talking about rule of law. I mean, just that rule of law. We all been talking here tonight, accountability. We're talking about a legal framework. We have the organic law, the balance of power Mr. Blamo is talking about. We do have it in the Constitution. Only if we have constitutionalism. That is only if we have rule of law. We respect the rule of law.
And that's coming from the executive leadership, right?
Well, not just executive leadership. We have a government. The government is not just the executive. The executive is the administration. So you have election, people are there 6 years. That's not the government. That's the administration of our government. The particular administration brings in people, who they think will help them run the government. So that executive leadership, we have a very strong executive in our system in Liberia. That is true. However, if we weren't corrupt, if we were a country of rule of law, if we were, we were respecting what we have on the books, you have these branches of government that could actually hold our executive accountable. Like the people on the Hill in the legislature, if they were doing their job, all of them, you hold a president who wants to be such a powerful centralized president, you could hold them accountable, they will slow down, things will work. So I am submitting to you now that our system fundamentally is rotten, and one person can just come by electing that person, everything has disappeared and our problem is solved. It's not possible. It's not. However, I'm not ruling it out that somebody could get elected and they really have that vision and things start to move, and they come to the citizen and say, "Oh, you elected me. These are the problems I've seen. Some of them require constitutional amendment. Some of them require, big resources, fundamental changes. I'm willing to tackle them. Let's get to work." You can have that kind of leader. So that's not the point. I'm not dismissing that. However, I'm saying just changing George Weah will not give you what you're asking for. You have to do the research that Ishman talked about. You have to take a pause and say, all right, how do we get here? What do we have? What do we need to do?
Maybe one people on that list doing that.
Yeah, people on that list. Look, listen, I cannot name 3 people to you on that list that, based on what they've been telling me, that they will do for the
Well, the man
country.
has already named Gonglo.
Yeah,
He
I
said
named
Gonglo
Gonglo
has the
because I'm not
recipe.
saying I named
Yeah,
Gonglo. I gave him credit for rule of law. I gave him
yeah,
credit for
that's
lifting
it.
corruption.
That's
That's a
it.
big one because, by virtue of that, he's saying we have moral problem. He's saying, look, we have hooliganism problem. We don't respect our laws. We don't do, if we solve that, we've solved half of our problem. That's why that I'm not. So Gonglo is singing rule of law. That's why I lift his name. So I'm not saying Gonglo is the solution, but Gonglo's idea of us respecting the law is a good place to start.
Thank you. Dave is trying to capitalize on that because he supports Gonglo. Mr. Blamo.
I like Mr. Sirleaf position. He got some real strong theory, but in my lifetime, we try all. And I can name 3 people who have the potential that could do what we need in Liberia. But the problem is, will they do it? Will they have the political courage to do it? And will the people allow it? Gonglo is one. But as long as Gonglo cannot deliver or unify Nima County, he cannot be a strong presidential contender. So maybe in the future. And Cummings has some good ideas. Cummings lacks the numbers. And as long as he don't have the number and he don't win the presidency, it's useless to say that his theory will work. George Weah has the policy, empowerment of the people. If the CDC can get a backbone to remember how he got elected and go towards that empowerment of the people, we have a great chance of creating a balance of power and empowering the people and implementing the institutions that Mr. Eastman is talking about, the rules of engagement. And the only solution in moving the nation forward is we must be nationalist. And the choice of whether we want to put system in place before we restore political rights to all the people in Liberia is not ours. It's God-given right of those citizens to determine their destiny.
Mr. Blamo,
you can't take it from them.
Mr. Blamo,
So
let me interject. Name one thing that unifies us as Liberians. One thing that brings us together regardless of tribe or whatnot, that we're so crazy about and we that galvanizes us. What is that thing?
Okay, I will answer your question, but it's not a solution. From my point of view, what Liberians are united about is jobs and something to eat. You provide them jobs, they will forget about the system. They have done it many, many years. But what we need is to create a balance of power. This president thing we are electing, this is an emperor. And you cannot have accountability if the system is controlled by a few people. And you cannot have, and our constitution as it exists, you cannot say check and balance a bill in that system. We don't have a balance of power. So it sounds nice.
Define this balance of power. Just
a balance of power is the ability of people to implement some of the things that Mr. Eastman is talking about. You must have political pressure. You must have people who will engage the government. But when you have people who are thinking about what they will eat tomorrow, they're not going to go out of their way to engage the government. If you have a political system where the people for 160 years are considered to be voters, after you get on bag of red, they vote for you, it's finished. The system does not have recall. There's no law in our book where we're going to recall John Brown because he's not serving. So there is no balance of power. And I don't have to say the presidential power, because you know that the president in the country is king. And it's not George Weah's fault. He inherited it. The system doesn't have balance of power. But if you empower the people and you put in check and balances in constitutional amendment.
But those things are in the Constitution, though, the balance of power, the check and balance, and all.
It says there are three branches of government. It just says.
We do have recall law. You can recall.
Allow me to come in 1 quick second. Allow me to come in. John, the question you've been asking. John, the question you've been asking. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. As we have seen the leadership or the incumbent weak to instill anti-corruption laws and uphold the law. We've heard things like, "Oh, we all related," all kinds of weak affirmations why they can't implement the law as is. Another way to do this is to create an autonomous agency that is not answerable to the executive, but they are anti-corruption, for corruption prevention, for corruption, for the pursuit of corrupt acts, and give it a 10-year position so that they can go after anyone and no one can remove them. Make it autonomous. That is one way of doing it, because you will have that executive there that has not been able to follow through. But when you have a bureau that all their job, all the response, like today the LACC, but the LACC is appointed by the president. So this can't be appointed by the president. This has to be, yes.
I put a list on the screen, and my question was, can we look towards a list like this for the solution that we're talking about? According to Mr.
I've heard you looking at people. You're talking about looking at people?
No, look at, we're going to election. We're going to have somebody.
Yeah.
So what we are looking for, can it come from a team? Can it come from?
Yes, George Weah. George Weah can redeem that country.
We're small. George Weah have gone 6 years and
no, your response should be George Weah is redeeming the country, not can redeem the country, because it's already there.
Thank you for your advice, but that's not what I said.
So Jimmy, I want you to look, because everything that we're discussing, we're going to election. Somebody got to be there, right? So what we are talking about, can it be something like I asked at the beginning, like the solutions that we're looking for, can we find them in a person or a political party? Someone who's going to take us to the promised land?
Yeah, well, I've always held the belief that George Weah has the mandate of the people that he can accomplish these things. But so far, we have not seen him upholding the law as we would like. That has been the problem. What can compel him to do it? That I don't know. Like Mr. Blamo is saying, something has to compel him to do it. But he is in the perfect position to do it.
Hold on, Mr. Blamo. So Jimmy, if let Jimmy please end your thought then.
Yeah, he is perfectly situated to do it.
We have 6 years. We have 6 years of him, right?
Yes.
Has he done that?
No, not to our satisfaction, apparently.
Right. All right.
So, what can compel him to do it? That should be our question.
But is it possible that the solution come from the list that I put up? Like the president?
Yes, George Weah.
Yeah.
With sufficient citizen pressure, civil engagement, we can force CDC to comply.
Why do we need citizen pressure for someone to comply?
Because that is what democracy is about. People don't just hand people. The citizen demand.
But isn't that obvious that you are elected and you go into power and you take constitutional oath to protect and defend the constitution? I mean, do you need any
Dennis,
other extra power to do what you're supposed to do?
Listen, you are saying the man is not doing what he's supposed to do.
No, I'm not saying
I'm
that.
saying the man doesn't believe he's not doing what he's supposed to do.
What do
So
you believe?
you the citizen, gotta demand it out of him.
What do you believe? So you were saying
You must demand it out of him.
But can we
You
demand
must-
it? Oh, hold on, you use George Weah, right? But can
Yes.
we demand it out of any other president? Or does it have to be George Weah?
No, Teron Gonglo will not win the presidency.
No.
He will be the next best thing.
Let's forget this whole idea of this person going to win. Or not. I'm saying, can what we are looking for come from this list, come from an individual or a political
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know how Mr. Blamo
Through
will
the
preach
spirit
that
of
he
nationalism.
when he has not even been
Nationalism.
conducted. He knows
But
he's
you're
gonna
saying
win or
only
not.
George Weah, but it got to come from the people pressurizing him.
Yes.
But why can't
The
it be
people-
Buckeye, or can it be Alan Brown, or can it be somebody else?
I like Uncle Joe, but that is not what we would get.
How do we know that? You
You asked my personal opinion, but I like the man,
all right?
but that's not what we would get.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't want to I don't want to go into details.
All right. Because I personally don't like by the time we say election, people already say, oh, it will be between these two persons. This is how we've been thinking for so long. But go ahead, Dave.
But I mean, Mr. Blamo, I mean, you don't want to make it into an argument, but George Weah has already stated in his own words that he has outperformed every other president since the establishment of the republic. So he said, and his people are claiming that he's the best thing that has ever happened to this country. So there is that degree of complacency. They believe that they have done the utmost. And yet still you are talking about George Weah is the one that he said he has already established that system. In fact, in the Ellen's era, that issue about devolution of powers, or what you call decentralization or whatever, the framework was put into place. Those things that you are talking about, a lot of them with these service rentals, and that's where at some point they were appointing these county coordinators and all of that. Those things were put into place. When George Weah got there, have you ever heard of them? But yet still you have the audacity to say that he is the only one that is able to establish it. People, leadership. I'm coming for Liberia as a nation. You see, when you have sometimes dictatorship, or sometimes, the Chinese system where they have their Politburo and all of that. These few guys, they go in the system, they brainstorm, they generate some ideas and they throw them out there and you're supposed to follow them. We don't have that system. We have a democratic system. For our system to work in that, the person has to have a very, as you said, he has to be patriotic, he has to be nationalistic, and he has to be well-informed. Well-informed on the Constitution, on the issues that affect the country. That person should be teachable. That person should have the capacity to think. And that's why I said to be a good Liberian leader, you got to have only 7 shirts, 7 trousers that all look alike. You have to take bath maybe 2 times a week. You have to sleep for 5 hours because you are brainstorming day and night, along with your cabinets, along with everybody. You are interacting with even the judicial branch, the legislative branches, all of them. George Weah doesn't have that capacity to do those things. He does not understand leadership. If he understood leadership, we will not have this problem because he has the popularity. But he doesn't. A leader has to be quick, smart, innovative, teachable, if you want to manage this country we call Liberia.
But can I ask you one question, John?
Dave,
quickly?
I have to forgive you. I have
let
to
me,
forgive you for.
for this brother.
I
but
have to
John, let me
forgive
ask you
you
one question.
for
Go
that
He
ahead,
also
Jimmy.
description
has to,
of the
he
president.
Go ahead,
also,
Jimmy.
That the president can't think. I'll
John,
forgive you for that.
No, I need deeper thinking, high level thinking. There are 4 stages of thinking. High
yeah,
level thinking. It's not just these basic fragmented things that he's
right.
doing.
But John,
High
one
level.
thing you left out,
Yeah.
he also has to win the popular vote, whoever is there.
Mhm.
And that is where we are at a quagmire, because you can have all those qualities
Yeah.
and not get the popular vote. So
So
what's
if
going on? Our
yeah,
people, well, let's see where this is leading. Our
okay.
people, the way they select their leaders
Mhm.
could be part of the problem here. Because what is it based on? Are you are you bringing somebody who's honest, who will do your bidding? Do you know that it will be that type of person? So part of the problem, people, there's a saying that people get the leaders they deserve. Are you looking for somebody like you just described? Are they looking for that person? Look around Monrovia. Ask them what kind of leader you want. Just
Thank
ask
you.
them,
Thank
and
you.
you'll find out what kind of answers you get.
That's a
That
different argument, though, Jimmy. You're talking about the possibility or the winnability.
yeah.
We're discussing problems here, and how we think we can find a solution. So I want us to suspend judgment as to who we think we're going to win or not win, or who has. I think that's the second thing we can get. But let me hear from Mr. Sirleaf, and then we bring Mr. Sirleaf, and then we bring in our colors. Mr. Sirleaf, I put up. Oh, yeah, I started with you with this list, right? And you didn't want to.
Yeah, no, I
So,
told you I wasn't giving up on the list because I
yeah,
believe
you picked Gonglo, even though you didn't want to say it.
I picked Gonglo because of rule of law.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm not here to predict whether who will win. This person will win. This person will
Yeah.
not win. They have the vote. They don't have the vote. It's not my place.
You
I'm
are
just
right,
saying.
Mr. Sirleaf. You don't have to apologize. You're
No, no.
right.
I'm just saying based on your question. I know that corruption is a problem. I know that impunity is a problem, and corruption will not mitigating corruption will not solve all of Liberia's problem. Even if you mitigated waste, if you address legislative corruption, public corruption through our government, and all of that government asset for public purposes and things that you control that. Yes, you will accrue some revenue, but it's not enough. It is not enough to allow us to engage in the type of massive sort of physical infrastructure, capital investment in agriculture, in road, in power generation, electricity, light manufacturing, things like that. Without alone, domestic revenue mobilization just through corruption management will not get us there. So
Thank
that's
you.
not the development economic the lecture I'm giving here. That's not what I say. If I suggested that, that's not what I suggested. I'm saying, however, that corruption, that idea of rule of law goes a long way. It means the citizens, it addresses the mindset. It addresses morality, a sense of who we are. The citizen will say, look, if I take this thing that it doesn't belong to me just because I have power over budget or just because I'm in government, that's wrong. And there will be consequences. I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me bring in our callers so that we can do this thing in less than 2 hours. Uh, Let me take the first caller on the line here. That's Mr. Evan Morris. Evans, you have a minute.
Thank you, Mr. John, and hello to the panelists. Great discussion. A very informative and opinionated discussion. I have my little 2 cents on what I think we need in order to thrive as a country. And I think starting off, we just have to realize that there will be pain, emotional pain, and it starts by deconstructing our nation. And I say pain because of those pioneers who, their descendants will feel like we're trying to do away with their legacies. But we have to go back from the drawing board and reform our nation in the image of every ethnic group within our country and make our country as inclusive as possible. Let us be like a body where if our kidney is not working, we may die. If our lungs are not breathing well, we may die. If our heart is not beating, we may die. So that has become like a fully functioning body with each of our ethnic groups playing an integral part in our nation. When they feel like they're a part of that country and they are they have an integral part to play, and without their involvement and their inclusion, the country won't survive. Everybody now know that they're very much needed, and their participation in the nation's success is paramount. And therefore, each ethnic group, each group in that nation, feel like they have a part to play. That's the first step. And then, of course,
what about those without ethnic group?
I mean, that would be a ideal situation where we don't have ethnic groups and everybody can be quote unquote Liberian. But again, one of the problems
I mean those who don't have the ethnic group, but they are Liberians.
I mean, I don't know, Mr. Jai, don't make it too complicated. Let me give my own meaning.
Okay.
But then the second part is, like Mr. Eastman, I think, was saying, when it comes to accountability, like I say in the comments, punitive actions leads to deterrence or is necessary for deterrence. If we're not taking actions against people who break the law, who steal from the country, that's going to breed, impunity. And then lastly, we have to, rehabilitate some of the images of certain groups of people. For example, the quote-unquote American Liberian or the colored people. You take somebody like Cummings, who may very well be the most qualified on the economic front, but people have a reservation for voting for him because of the ethnic group that he comes from and the history that the country went through from that ethnic group. Take the ethnic group, or my ethnic group, the Crown group. If we have somebody who come along who may be very well qualified, but because he comes from that ethnic group and the history of that ethnic group, people will be apprehensive to vote for that person. So rehabilitation, with the different ethnic groups, and really reconstructing or restructuring our nation and becoming one people as a whole will really help to have everybody be inclusive in our government system, and that would build nationalism, like some of the guys are talking about on the platform.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll be in a better position. As we're constituted right now, I think we're going to have some of the same problems. One group is going to be backbiting the other groups because they feel like those people are different. They want to be ruled in a certain way. They're going to be nepotistic. They're going to be this way and that way, and vice versa. And that's not the right way for our country to go. That's why I think we need to reconstruct it and make everybody included, and therefore we can move forward as a nation. Thank you for taking my call. You're right there.
Thank you. Tell Lion Yankun. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Jab. This is Tell Lion Yankun, the global chairman for the two fastest CDC auxiliaries in Lima County, the auxiliary that gave Prince George hard time, and district number 130, the auxiliary that produced the highest voter registrations in the CDC. Thank you for that. First of all, before I really, concord with Mr. Blamo, and Mr. Eastman, but I would like to condemn my brother who just came from the phone, when he said that many people don't want to vote for communists because of the ethnic group. No, not that. Many people don't want to vote for communists because communists were not there. Like the way President Weah was there for the people, and which President Weah been preparing this generation, sending people to school, to identify themselves with Liberians. Like one of the major reasons people don't want to vote for him, and all of reasons things that surround him. But let me applaud Mr. Blamo. I said Mr. Blamo has the rightful remedy for us, Mr. Eastman. If President Weah is listening to this program tonight, I urge President Weah and whoever are very close to President Weah to pass a message to President Weah. The remedy that Mr. Blamo came up with, give power to the people to decide for that, that leaders in that rural constituency or in the counties and areas. That would be a very good remedy for the proper agenda for the PAPD. I really applaud, Mr. Blamo this is the main reason why I got to call him. And I would like to applaud Social Zone District number 3, Lima County, the only CDC representative that opened it, brought itself down to our level to West Brookman Group. And this was the most talked about group in Lima County that is in the trenches for the CDC. The Teddy Lion, Yakun, exonerate for Lima for persons we have in Lima County. And this exonerate for peace and development in the country. Yes, sir.
This is, let me put my Zelle number. You just made your ad on the show and you have to pay for it. Please, please look at the screen and pass on your Zelle so that we can pay for your for the ad for your political action committee.
I'll hold you this week. I will send my
your ad money.
Sure.
But thank you so much.
Sure. I'm gonna do so. But I want to ask you a question. Is Mr. Eastman? Is that Mr. Eastman? Are you a part of the Eastman family now living in the Nukuta back in the days? I just want to know that.
All right.
And living in Nukuta?
You'll get your answer off the head.
Yeah. Yeah, the Eastman family. I grew up right around that house. I didn't have a basketball club there. You know, I was
Teddy.
listening to the former representative house. I grew up.
Thank you, Teddy.
I go that place. But thank you very much.
Yeah,
I really enjoy your idea. This life.
That order you were the elite.
One person we have to advise. But I'm growing nursing to her, then with my father already for nursing too.
Yeah. Order you're elite. Let me get my last caller, and that's ANC John Maulo. John.
All right, that's my new title. Listen, thank you, and thank you to your panelists for the discussion. Well, you see, John, is that whenever we ask Liberians a question, instead of us being patriotic to answer a question that will benefit our country, we straight away go into our little boxes. I heard two of the brothers say Cummings is the most competent economically to solve the problem, but to call an ethnic group. That is amazing. That people who call themselves educated still come out with that kind of excuse. Is that to mean that because somebody is born in the ethnic group, they all share the same kind of thinking? Is that what we're saying? Another person told me about George Weah being popular. George Weah is popular, but popular for what? Popular for what? Are we really talking about the betterment of our country here? We're talking about, I think, if we want to move our country forward in a positive way, we need somebody who is competent, has the capacity and the capability to change this country, being very patriotic. Somebody who knows how to build systems. That's what it requires. I don't care what part of the country they come from. If they know they are patriotic enough to build systems and insist that these systems work the way they should. We got a lot of things on the law book that we now following because the president wants to become insecure. If we find who is comfortable in their skin, patriotic to the nation, that's what we need. It got nothing to do with what part of the country you come from. Most people are here talk about Liberia now. It's like Liberia started in 1980 or 1990. That's not where it started. All this miseducation of what was and what is all clamoring to blur our vision on what we can be. We need somebody like Cummings who knows how to build a system. We need somebody who will bring us all together, regardless of our tribal and cultural differences, bring us together as Liberians. When we went to school, we didn't care what part of Liberia. We were all Liberians and we were happy. I went to school with people from kindergarten to college, and I still don't know their tribes, and I don't care. If they were Liberian, that what matters to me. So all of this thing about this person ethnicity and things, people are not the same. Not because the person came from the ethnic group and they acted something, and so the other person will. How they call it, the popularity of George Weah. Have we ever asked ourselves what was he popular for? How in the right mind of anybody can you be talking about George Weah when you talk stuff? This man is a footballer. He was good at that. But what does that have to do with managing a country? That's the foolishness we got involved in and got us to where we are.
Thank you, John.
We need to start thinking more about our country than our personal friendships and travel relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, that's our last caller for the night. Mr. Blamo, I give each of you 1 minute to respond to our caller, and then we'll close. Mr. Blamo, you go first. Mr. Blamo, unmute yourself, please.
I believe that with citizen engagement and pressure, we can implement constructive engagement with the CDC and to move the country forward by becoming nationalist. And regardless of our party affiliation, religion, or tribe. I believe when you have a balance of power in the country, you can have accountability. I believe when you have a balance of power, citizens empower the people. Citizens can hold their elected representative accountable. In the absence of constitutional amendment to put the forces in place, as Mr. Eastman have described, we will have a problem. But at this point, there is still a chance of engaging constructively with government to move the nation forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Join me this Thursday on Tough Talking Thursday as we interview presidential candidate Alan Brown. Alan will be on Tough Talking Thursday to tell us the Brown we are playing for Liberia and their chances for victory come October of 2023. That will be right here on Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the night. At this time, we're going to go around the room for your closing. Let me start with Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Ja, moderator. And thanks to the various panelists for such. I think we need to have these discussions. Liberia is still in search of a direction, and maybe these discussions may help to inform the issues so that we can have some. I once visited, when I visited Liberia, and I described Liberia as a kind of a puzzle. If you want, Liberia is a puzzle. It has a lot of those things, the various pieces that are needed to make it a complete mosaic. It just requires some degree of innovation, of some tough, provoking analysis. It requires a lot of deep thinking, of hard work, so that we can put those pieces together. But I strongly believe that we have what we need to build a more vibrant nation. And we have to be very honest to ourselves. We have to be honest to the country. We have to demonstrate genuine love, and not just love for my tribal person or my political party and all of those things, because those things will not lead us anywhere. Let us look for the very best within ourselves. Let's capitalize on our strength, because that's how every nation that has made progress, that's how they develop, that's how they move forward. They look at their strength, the very best amongst them, and capitalize on their strength, and then they will showcase what they are capable of doing to the world. So I thank all of you. I think Liberia deserves better. This country can move forward with all of us working together. Those 20 persons, I think They can all form maybe two political parties, and everybody, bring all their talents on board, and we have a better nation that all of us will be proud of, and that all of us will enjoy. And we are kind of one people. We just need to work together and get the best for our country. So thank you again. Thank you, folks, for the interaction. And I say
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy?
Uh, we back here again. One more time, we're going to elect a leader. We have to be aware that politicians play a game with us. They say one thing and they do another. We have to find a way to protect ourselves, and therefore you have to be able to see between what politicians say and what politicians actually do, and choose one not because of your sentiments or how you feel, but someone who you genuinely know can do the job. That is supposed to be the litmus test. Because I may feel, oh, this man, I'm my bastard brother or my kin, but can he do the job? If he can't do the job, then you can't pick him. Pick someone who can do the job. That's the only guidance you have. I'll leave it right there.
Mr. Sirleaf?
Thank you, Dennis. I would join everybody else to encourage more of these kinds of discussions, and it's been an honor to be here with you all. So I will start with leadership because that's the first point of departure. It seems we always go to. Leaders matter, just like institutions. Leaders, for example, can inspire their people. Leaders can drive vision and inspire citizens, and the inspiration leaders bring can lead to mindset change, can lead to behavior change, and therefore can lead to progress. So I'm not one who dismisses leadership or leaders. Leaders do matter. But if you ask us about what is wrong with Liberia, how do we get out of it? It takes more than leadership. Some of it is system, some of it is legal framework, some of it is just figuring out how we can respect what we have on the books already. In other words, how do we become a nation that respects rule of law? It's not perfect. No nation in this great United States, they have that strong institution. They have the Constitution. They are loyal to the Constitution. Yet we saw one man who tried to overthrow, to instill a coup to extend his power. We saw that democracy here almost fell. Almost. So yeah. So no system, no nation is beyond reproach. However, there are systems we can learn from, and Liberia does have people. Liberia has a capability of, cultivating and grooming leaders. That word to uh, to grow somebody, that leader or leaders that can really truly take us out of where it seems is impossible to come out of. I give you an example when Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was president, with all her flaws and, may agree with her politics and policy. I was in the country. I saw Liberians in the diaspora move home. I saw Liberians in villages, Liberians in the cities inspired. I saw a country that was growing to be a happy country. That is what leadership does. Leadership can inspire policy change. Leadership can inspire institutional change and conformity to institutional norms and institutional rules. So Liberia is not in a place where it's impossible to come out of. It just requires a number of things, a combination of factors. And so I will join everybody to say, let's vote wisely. Let's, those who are in the country who are privileged to be going to the ballot box, vote wisely. Vote for the non-count tribes and things like that. Somebody who you believe can make your life better. Somebody who can move your country forward. So I have not given up on Liberia. I started in the beginning by saying Liberia is a great country. It has strong history, and we can still rise and claim our place in the community of nations and in the places in history.
Thank you. On that note, Mr. Blamo was going to be our last speaker, but he fell off. So we're going to end the broadcast with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you believe the issue with decentralization, with leadership, the rule of law, or the balance of power, we are all Liberians. Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.